It started with a single encrypted email that landed in the inbox of investigative journalist Ryan Keller at 2:37 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday in Washington, D.C. The sender's address was untraceable, the message unsigned, just a series of numbers, coordinates, and a chilling phrase. Greater than, they've done it. Time travel is real. Project Chronos, buried under Groom Lake. Ryan had covered government scandals before, military black sites, missing Pentagon funds, covert drone operations, but this was different. The attached file was over 2 gigabytes of classified-looking documents, memos stamped, top secret, majestic clearance required, technical blueprints, and video stills showing what appeared to be a massive underground facility. The documents referenced something called the Chronos Initiative, a top-secret DARPA-funded project allegedly started in 1989 under the guise of quantum field research. But the file suggested a darker purpose, the manipulation of temporal fields to send matter backward in time. Ryan spent hours verifying the metadata. Every file, every timestamp checked out. Some of the internal emails were signed by real Department of Defense officials. Others referenced meetings at Site-14, a facility officially listed as non-existent. The deeper he dug, the stranger it became. Blueprints showed a circular machine, 20 meters across, with superconductive rings powered by something called zero-point induction. Notes in the margins mentioned temporal displacement up to 5 minutes achieved, subject unstable. Then he found one line that froze him completely. Greater than, first human trial scheduled, March 14, 2003 drive. Hensley volunteer. No external disclosure permitted. Contingency. Memory containment protocol active. Ryan's instincts told him this was more than a hoax. He decided to reach out to his trusted contact inside the Pentagon, Colonel Mason, a man who owed him a favor. But before he could hit send, his screen flickered. The files vanished. His laptop restarted on its own, and when it powered back on, everything was gone. All except one file. A single text document remained, renamed automatically. Greater than, we warned you, Ryan. The following morning, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every step outside his apartment felt heavier, as if eyes were tracking his movements. He tried to convince himself it was paranoia, that maybe he'd fallen for an elaborate online hoax. But deep down, he knew better. By 10:15 a.m., he was sitting inside a coffee shop 2 blocks from the National Press Building, laptop open, a burner phone on the table. He dialed the only number that still felt safe, Colonel Mason's private line. Ryan Keller, Mason's gravelly voice answered, low and cautious. You shouldn't be calling me on this frequency. I need to ask you something, Colonel. Ever heard of Project Chronos? There was a long pause. Then, click. The line went dead. Within minutes, Ryan received a text message from an unknown number. Greater than, don't say that name again. Meet me tonight. Same place as before. That same place was a forgotten diner on the outskirts of Arlington, one they'd used years ago when Ryan helped Mason expose military waste in Afghanistan contracts. He got there at midnight, the parking lot empty except for a single black SUV. Mason sat inside, wearing civilian clothes, looking 10 years older. I can't stay long, Mason muttered. You've stumbled into something you can't write about, not yet. Ryan slid a printed copy of the Chronos Initiative memo across the dashboard. Then tell me who drive. Hensley is. The documents said he volunteered for the first human trial in 2003. What happened to him? Mason's jaw tightened. He glanced around before speaking. Dr. Adrian. Hensley was one of DARPA's lead physicists in the early 2000s. Brilliant, obsessive. The project you found, it was real, but not in the way you think. Hensley wasn't just testing the machine. He disappeared during the trial. The chamber activated, and he was gone. No remains. No energy residue. Just gone. Ryan leaned closer. Gone, as in dead. Mason shook his head, as in no longer here. The machine recorded a massive temporal displacement, a shift backward of about 75 years. Officially, they said it was an equipment failure. Unofficially, he hesitated, voice dropping to a whisper. They found fragments of radio transmission days later, World War II frequency. Someone was trying to send a message from 1943. The voice matched Hensley's. Ryan froze. You're telling me the experiment actually worked. Mason sighed. I'm telling you it wasn't supposed to. Before Ryan could respond, Mason's phone buzzed. His expression changed instantly. They found us, he said, eyes darting toward the diner's exit. Outside, a black drone hovered over the parking lot, silent, scanning. Mason grabbed Ryan's shoulder. Destroy your laptop. Leave DC. Now. Then he stepped out of the SUV and vanished into the darkness. Ryan didn't sleep that night. He drove for hours, every car in his rearview mirror setting off a jolt of fear. By sunrise, he'd reached an old safe house he'd used during past investigations in Frederick, Maryland, a forgotten cabin surrounded by trees and static-laced silence. He powered up a new burner laptop and began digging again. If Mason was right, drive. Adrian Hensley had vanished in 2003 during a classified time travel experiment. There had to be proof somewhere, something not yet erased. After hours of searching through mirrored data archives, Ryan found something strange, an internal security log from SITE-14, dated March 14, 2003, the day Hensley disappeared. Most of the video feeds were corrupted, except one. Camera 9B, test chamber observation deck. The footage was grainy, black and white. Ryan hit play. A group of scientists in white coats surrounded a massive ring-like structure, 12 metallic arcs humming faintly, connected by coils of glowing blue light. A voice off-screen shouted, "Stabilize containment field." Then, Hensley appeared, calm, determined, stepping into the center of the machine wearing what looked like a radiation suit. He adjusted a small headset and said something the mic barely picked up. Greater than, if this works, tell my wife I'll see her yesterday. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. At 3, the power readings spiked. The light grew unbearable. The screen filled with static, then cleared for a split second. And in that frame, Ryan saw it. Hensley's silhouette flickered, like he was being torn between two images. One in the present, and one in a battlefield. Behind him, soldiers in 1940s uniforms were shouting, smoke rising. Then, nothing. The feed cut out. Ryan leaned back, shaking. His hands trembled as he checked the file properties. It had been archived automatically by the Department of Defense 2 hours after the test, and then deleted the next day under Directive 87 Theta. He tried uploading the clip to an encrypted cloud server. The upload reached 82%, then froze. His internet signal vanished. Then his laptop screen went black. A new message appeared, white letters against darkness. Greater than, stop looking. And then, a low hum filled the room. Not from the laptop, from outside. Ryan peered through the cabin window. A convoy of unmarked black vehicles was making its way down the dirt road. They had found him. The rumble of tires on gravel drew closer. Ryan killed the lights, slammed his laptop shut, and ducked beneath the window. Through a narrow crack in the curtains, he saw them, 3 matte black SUVs rolling slowly up the dirt path, headlights off, moving in perfect formation. No plates. No markings. Just tinted glass and silence. Ryan's pulse hammered in his ears. He grabbed his go bag, hard drives, cash, fake IDs, and slipped out the back door. The night air was cold and damp, every sound magnified. He moved through the woods, crouched low, branches snapping softly under his boots. Then came the voices. "Thermal says he's close," one of the men said, voice filtered through a comm headset. "Command wants him alive. Repeat, alive." Ryan froze behind a tree. Whoever they weren't local police. Their movements were too synchronized, their tone too calm. Federal, private security, or something darker. A drone swept overhead, casting a faint blue beam across the forest floor. He waited until it passed, then sprinted downhill toward the old service road where his backup car, a rusted Ford Escape, was hidden under a tarp. He reached it just as the SUV doors opened behind him. Boots hit the ground. He started the engine. Headlights on. Pedal down. Gunfire cracked through the trees, suppressed, precise. A bullet shattered the rear window as he swerved onto the main road. For the next 10 minutes, it was a blur of adrenaline and headlights in the rearview mirror. Then, as suddenly as they'd appeared, the black SUVs stopped chasing. They pulled over, engines idling. No pursuit. No drones. Just silence. Ryan didn't slow down until he reached the edge of an abandoned industrial park outside Baltimore. He parked inside a derelict warehouse and took a breath for the first time in what felt like hours. He opened his bag, checking the hard drive. It was cracked, damaged from the chase. But one small flash drive had survived. He plugged it into an old laptop and found a single recovered file. Chronos_log_alpha. It wasn't video this time. It was an audio recording. A man's voice, distorted, echoing, spoke softly through static. This is Dr. Hensley. If anyone finds this, the experiment succeeded. But they're lying about what happened. The machine didn't send me to the past, it opened it. The past isn't fixed anymore. They've changed something, and now they can't close it. The recording ended with a sharp metallic screech, followed by one last sentence whispered so faintly Ryan almost missed it. They're coming for anyone who knows. Ryan sat in the dark, the warehouse silent except for the faint hum of the laptop. He realized something terrifying: whoever was after him wasn't just protecting a secret. They were protecting a mistake. By the next evening, Ryan knew he had only two choices: disappear, or expose everything. The recording from Dr. Hensley had changed everything. It wasn't just proof that time travel existed, it was proof that something had gone wrong. He decided to contact a trusted ally, Drive. Evelyn Cross, a former NSA cryptologist who had gone underground years earlier after leaking classified predictive AI data. If anyone could decrypt what was left of the Chronos files, it was her. He reached out through an encrypted signal on the dark web, using their old code phrase. The future isn't linear. She replied within minutes. Meet me in Philadelphia, 11:45 p.m. The terminal. Ryan arrived at the deserted train terminal hours later, clutching the flash drive. The dim fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across empty benches. Evelyn appeared, hood up, eyes scanning the corners. "Do you realize what you're holding?" she asked, plugging the drive into her secure tablet. Chronos wasn't just about travel, it was about control. She began decrypting the audio metadata, and within minutes, a hidden file tree appeared. Shadow_protocol. Inside were government memos and encrypted orders dated 2024, 2 decades after the supposed shutdown of Project Chronos. Ryan frowned. "I thought this program ended in 2003. Evelyn shook her head. "It didn't end. It evolved." The documents revealed that the Shadow Protocol was designed to use temporal manipulation to alter key events in history, not for exploration, but for geopolitical advantage. One memo described a successful stabilization of a loop near Berlin, 1945, another mentioned economic influence trials, 1971. But then came the final file, marked Containment Directive 0 Delta. It read, temporal interference detected. Divergence increasing. Recommend immediate erasure of external witnesses and data nodes. Priority target, Keller, Ryan, journalist contact. Possible breach through subject Hensley. Ryan's heart sank. They weren't just trying to silence him, they had already identified him as a temporal threat. Somehow, through Hensley's interference, the timeline had changed, and Ryan's investigation was part of the ripple effect. Evelyn leaned closer. "Ryan, do you understand what this means? You weren't just targeted because you found this file. You were meant to find it. Something or someone from that altered timeline wants this exposed." Before he could respond, her tablet went black. Then the overhead lights flickered twice, and a cold metallic voice echoed from the station's PA system. Chronos containment breach confirmed. Shadow agents en route. Eliminate exposure. Evelyn's eyes widened. They found us again. Ryan grabbed the drive, yanking it free. They ran for the exit as the terminal doors slammed shut behind them. Through the glass, they saw silhouettes, figures in dark tactical gear, their movements mechanical, coordinated, almost inhuman. The last thing Ryan heard before they disappeared into the underground tunnel was the faint hum of something unnatural, a sound like tearing metal and whispering air. Time itself was bending. Ryan and Evelyn sprinted through the underground service tunnel, their footsteps echoing against damp concrete walls. The hum behind them grew louder, low, resonant, unnatural, like the air itself was vibrating. Evelyn glanced back, eyes wide. "That sound," she gasped. "It's not a machine. It's a rift. They opened one here." Ryan didn't understand, until the tunnel lights began to warp. The yellow bulbs stretched and flickered, bending like liquid. For a second, Ryan swore he saw another version of himself at the far end of the corridor, same jacket, same movements, running toward him. Then it was gone. They burst into a maintenance chamber filled with broken generators and rusted pipes. Evelyn dropped to her knees, pulling out a compact electromagnetic scanner. The rift's unstable. It's bleeding temporal energy. They're using it to track us. Ryan pulled out the flash drive. We need to destroy this. She shook her head. No, we need to upload it before it collapses. If we don't, no one will ever believe what's happening. She connected her tablet to an old fiber terminal and began the upload. Files flashed rapidly across the screen, encrypted logs, blueprints, and a final archive titled, Chronos_incident_complete. The chamber started to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then a portal, no, a hole in reality, began to form near the center of the room. It shimmered like a heatwave, but inside it, Ryan saw flashes of something impossible. Tanks rolling through 1940s France, soldiers in desert uniforms, and a city skyline that didn't exist yet. A deep, metallic voice echoed through the distortion. Greater than, unauthorized access detected. Shadow protocol executing purge sequence. A silhouette emerged from the distortion, tall, armored, featureless, moving like a machine. Evelyn's tablet beeped. Upload 72%. Keep it going. Ryan shouted, grabbing a metal pipe as the figure stepped forward, its body flickering between seconds, leaving ghostly afterimages behind. It raised an arm, and the pipe in Ryan's hands began to disintegrate, breaking into dust. Evelyn screamed, it's pulling us into a temporal fold. She hit a key on the tablet. Manual override. The rift exploded in light. A shockwave threw them both against the wall. For a few seconds, everything went silent. When Ryan opened his eyes, the chamber was empty, no soldiers, no portal, just the faint smell of ozone and burnt metal. Evelyn was gone. Only her tablet remained, cracked and sparking, screen frozen at upload complete, file sent, unknown node. Ryan stumbled to his feet, ears ringing. The walls were different. The graffiti on the concrete wasn't English anymore. Cyrillic letters, faded red stars, old Soviet insignia. He ran up the tunnel, pushed open a metal door, and emerged into daylight. But it wasn't Philadelphia anymore. The skyline was different, older. A tram rolled by, marked, Moskva, 1987. Ryan stared in disbelief. Oh my God, it worked. He had fallen through the rift. Ryan stumbled into the cold Moscow air, dazed and disoriented. The streets were alive with noise, trams screeching, engines growling, people shouting in rapid Russian. But everything felt off. The cars were boxy and outdated, the billboards in faded Cyrillic propaganda, and the air smelled of coal and metal instead of gasoline. He stopped at a corner and looked up at a massive banner draped across a government building. Greater than, Sesar, Velika Država, 1987. The USSR still existed. Ryan's chest tightened. Somehow, the Chronos rift had thrown him nearly 40 years into the past, into the Soviet Union, deep in the heart of the Cold War. He ducked into a narrow alley, catching his breath. His phone had no signal, the date display flashing error. The flash drive in his jacket pocket, the only piece of the future he had left, buzzed faintly with residual energy. Think, Ryan, he muttered. If Chronos tech exists now, maybe someone here was part of it. He wandered through the industrial district until he found a small workshop with English writing faintly etched on one rusted doorframe. A. Hensley, Quantum Division. His heart skipped. Hensley. He pushed the door open. Inside, the air smelled of oil and ozone. A man in a gray coat stood near a humming generator, sketching equations on a blackboard filled with loops and symbols. When he turned, Ryan's blood ran cold. It was him, Dr. Adrian Hensley, older, bearded, exhausted, but alive. I was wondering when you'd show up, Hensley said quietly, as if he'd been expecting him. Ryan stepped forward, stunned. You're supposed to be dead. You vanished in 2003. Hensley chuckled bitterly. No, I arrived here. Chronos wasn't a failure, it was a trap. The government didn't want to travel through time. They wanted to control it. And when I realized that, they erased me.